I'd like to welcome Mystery Ranch as a sponsor to the Western Huntsman. This is a great product. Specifically, we're going to talk about the Mysterium line. Those packs include the Sawtooth 45, the Sawtooth 65, the Beartooth 85, and the Marshall 105, depending on what you're doing with the pack. If you from day pack to backcountry, plenty of space. I like what they wrote on the website. Between the disciplines of calculated preparation and in-the-moment focus, an intangible alchemy exists. We call it Mysterium. It is our most ambitious, tech-rich line of Mystery Ranch hunting packs constructed for the most methodical hunters. I'd agree with that. It's a great pack, guys. I really like the ventilation system. When you put it on, it's nice and tight, but you're still breathing a little bit less of that buildup between the pack and your back when you're sweating and out there packing through the mountains and whatnot. It's a super functional pack, very comfortable. Very good at carrying loads. I've been using it all spring between bear and just like I do a lot of rucking to keep in shape, and it has done a phenomenal job. I've got a lot of top-of-the-line packs out there, and I've always kind of geeked out with packs, but I really do like the weight distribution and the way that it allows you multiple options as to where you're going to either carry a water bladder or one of those Contigo containers or whatever you're going to use. Really impressed. I love the ease of how everything functions on it too. You don't need to watch a bunch of videos to figure out how to undo everything to pack a bunch of meat out. That's really important for a guy like me, I promise. I'm not super smart. So the simplicity, the comfort, the load distribution, it all makes for a wonderful backcountry hunting pack. If you are in the market, check it out at mysteryranch.com/Mysterium. Back in the old days, there was this program called Layaway, where you can go into a store and start making payments on something, some high-dollar ticket item, and once you paid that off every month, it was yours. You could take it home. That's how I bought my first deer rifle from the Marine Corps PX on Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, and it was the first weapon that I bought that I purchased myself. It wasn't a hand-me-down, it wasn't my dad's, it wasn't anything like that. So I went and I picked out this 30-06, and I just didn't have a lot of money, and so I did the layaway program, but I needed a scope on it, and the cheaper scopes were all sold out, and so I bumped up to this entry-level Leupold scope and put that on the layaway program and had them all, put the whole package together for me and all that. Made the payments and finally got to bring it home. Ever since then, almost every rifle I've owned has had a Leupold scope. In fact, I'm having a custom rifle built this year, and it's going to have the Leupold Mark 5 HD scope on it. I just killed a buffalo with that scope. It's a really great product. And Leupold, guys, you know them. Everybody knows Leupold. They've been around since 1907. They started as a special instrument company or something like that. But these American-made products are fantastic. Whether you're looking for a spotter, binos, a rifle scope, accessories, tripods, bipods, all that kind of stuff. You can find it all at Leupold.com. And I'd really appreciate if you supported this American company that has a great American story. And I couldn't be a bigger fan of a company, and I'm so happy and thrilled that they've chosen to partner with the Western Huntsman. Thanks to Leupold, and thanks to you guys for supporting our great sponsors. There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Western Huntsman Podcast. This is Jim Huntsman, your host, coming at you from the Broken Tan studio on Christmas Eve even. By the time you listen to this, it'll be past Christmas. But anyway, I've got my good buddy Jordan Breshears on. He is a return guest. If you guys remember, last summer I had him on for School of September, and it was a really good episode. Apparently you guys really liked it because it got a ton of downloads. And I thought it would be cool. Jordan had an interesting season hunting some different areas that I have like curiosities about, and so we're gonna talk about that, some lessons learned, and just have a good all around hunting conversation. If you are watching on the video, like the YouTube channel or whatever, you've got the bowhunter Dan Picard and Brian Barney banner behind you, Jordan. But I want to clarify, this is not Dan Picard and Brian Barney. They're just trying to cheat you guys, my audience, out of listeners by dragging you into a better podcast than mine is. And it'll probably work if you go over there and listen to it. Jordan, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on again. It's a pleasure for sure. So, and yeah, I got to plug Life of a Bowhunter while we're at it. So that's a solid podcast for sure. So.
It's always my go-to when I have like a deeper need to understand some kind of archery strategy or piece of gear or something, because those guys really get into the weeds with some of that more technical information. I always really get a lot out of it,
Absolutely, yeah. If you want to find somebody who literally is the life of a bowhunter, it's Brian or Dan, right? So
yeah, exactly. I need to get those guys back on the show. Yeah, definitely. It's a perfect name for that show. So, well, cool, man. Real quick, you guys, there's like the first part of the School of September episode is kind of like the expose of Jordan here. Gives background, but you travel around doing work, like electrical work on nuclear facilities and stuff, right?
Yeah, so not electrical work, but we create electricity as an industry. So I'm a nuclear reactor technician. I work on the reactor component major upgrades team. So we do literally like once of a kind or similar upgrades to nuclear reactors all around the world, and either make them more efficient in some way or more easily worked on, some sort of a efficiency upgrade that allows us to get in and get out quicker with lower dose and or other teams, and or power upgrades, that kind of stuff. So.
Oh, okay. I was confused. I thought you were like some next level electrician that worked on the electrical part of nuclear facility. But anyway, we'll geek out with that stuff all day long, man. But
yeah, it's pretty wild. It's a unique industry for sure.
Oh, it totally is. It's super unique because you're gone for like weeks at a time working on these nuclear plants. They probably pay you pretty good for that. That's like a rare type kind of trade to be in. I would think. Yeah. And then what do you do for Eastmans?
I am just a stopgap, get her done, experienced blue collar bow hunter. So it just depends on what we need around here. I'm writing articles, doing gear reviews, testing products, just kind of you name it. It's because I'm only here I'm here year round, but off and on. Just like, hey, I'm sitting in on Monday meetings, probably somewhere around 30 weeks out of the year. And, Jordan's here, let's have him shoot that video. And so I'll jump in and tackle stuff like that. My experience in the big picture has been research. The MRS stuff is where I came in with Eastmans. So back in 2010, I actually started writing the research articles, and that was my introduction. So Montana was my bread and butter, and their guy was stepping out, and I had already been his source. So he's like, hey, you want to write this article about Montana's application draw strategies and all this? And I was like, yeah. And that was what got my foot in the door back in 2010. So literally right now, probably today, actually, I was on the phone with, at the time, Ryan Hatfield, and they're like, hey, so when can you get this done by? It was due last week. And so I spent my Christmas break typing about Montana and what I felt like the odds were and trophy potential. And, it was a pretty rudimentary version of what we have now. But it was just my passion. I knew if I was the geek about application stuff, and not so much like state by state, but if you wanted to know a law or a area or some sort of trick or space around how Montana worked, I had a pretty good idea about it. So it was fun for me. And that morphed into I was killing some pretty big critters with my bow, and Scott, they would attach photos of them in the members research section. And then I took the step-in editor out in 2012 on a hunt, and he hammered a Boone and Crockett muley in one of my spots, and that was on the episode that was put on the Outdoor Channel. And so that was really what pushed the next level for me coming to be a hunter with them. And I actually came down and met the guys then. That's when I met Guy and Mike, and Ike was becoming a big part of the organization at that time. And I started traveling and doing shows and selling memberships. We did back then, we'd travel all over all the sportsman shows, starting like next week, and just pound it, up and down the West Coast. And so that was the good old days, so, and did that for a lot of years, part-time still, as I've been in nuke the same amount of time. So I started nuking in 2010 as well. And, like you alluded to, the pay is pretty premium, and I'm conveniently, it kind of pays for my habit of hunting, and I get an opportunity to make a really steady income, travel the world, and still hunt all over the place. So the two meld together really well. So
is that how you came to be? I got a bunch of questions going back to some of the stuff you said there, but is that how you came to be hunting whitetail in Pennsylvania? Was because of the day job?
That's right. Yep.
Oh, okay. I kind of had a suspicion that, and it's really lucky. But we're gonna come back to that story here in a minute. But it's funny you say that. I was hunting about the Monday meetings and stuff. I was hunting with Brandon Mason in Wyoming this last fall, and he was talking about those Monday meetings and how somebody's always designated to bring breakfast or something. Yep. And sometimes I feel a little left out because I don't get to come to those, but I hate meetings. So it's like, a dichotomy of situations going on.
Sure. Absolutely.
So, and also, I think last time you came on, they were either just about to put out that YouTube video of that elk hunt, or they just did. And was that was the one where that grizzly tried to claim your bull? Was that you? Yeah, that's right. Okay. Because and that was a really good, I have like mixed results or feelings about different various YouTube videos that I watch about people with people's hunts. And I tend to like kind of go towards the ones that are enough information and educational that I feel like I'm getting value out of it. Because I don't just go watch hunting videos for the entertainment. I don't know. I'm not into that. It's not my thing, but I love watching them where I feel like I'm learning something, and I get like key takeaways that I can use in the field. And I got a lot of that out of your video. Nice. of that elk hunt. It was especially like specific to bow hunting. Because like you and Dan and Brian, you guys are like, you're heavily vested into bow hunting. You're very serious bow hunters, and I've always considered myself a fairly serious bow hunter, but not like on your guys' level. Because I have no shame. I'll go rifle hunting. I'll go whatever. I'll use a Civil War cannon if they let me. But
get her done.
Get her done either way. But anyway, I think that's important for you to know. Like that video, it was good because anybody watching that is going to have some key takeaways. Strategy wise, how you pursue elk, how using your calls at the right time. Just different things, even down to being aware when you're in grizzly country, coming back to pack that sucker out. There might be one of those big giant rodents on it, and so. Anyway, good job on that video. So kind of give us the idea, guys, by the way, for you listening is we're gonna go back and forth and talk some hunting here, and we like talking about key takeaways or lessons learned throughout the last season, because it's still, again, it's Christmas Eve right now with the morning of. I've got fresh coffee. I've got my dog in here ready to talk hunting. My mind is not on Christmas just yet. It will be in a couple hours, but it's still just real fresh out of hunting season. And so I've got a lot of things rolling through my mind that I learned, mistakes I made, I bet you've got the same kind of thing going on in your head. Your season, I think, kicked off with what, an archery hunt mule deer there in Wyoming, or is that
Yep,
where season started for you? Tell us
it
about
did.
that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. So it was a weird season for me in the sense of some last minute changes. So I morphed, as I always feel like I have to, into what would be my most likely scenario. So rewind a little bit, and we made an offer on a house that we ended up purchasing in Cody, Wyoming. I believe on June 20, no, July 26th,
Mm-hmm.
with the expectation of closing it before opening day. Um, I had a lot of commitments from my banker. I had a lot of commitments from my realtor, and I pushed water uphill. It must have been the end of June, actually. So we had ample time to close, and as you can imagine, the way this is headed, it didn't happen. So I absolutely beat every bush, kicked, turned over every rock, in the attempt to not have to move at the beginning of September, but I did. So we bought our house, and I knew we were going to close any day, and I couldn't find myself in the backcountry chasing elk, which was the plan. So I was supposed to be on a tag that I drew and just focusing on elk, and all of a sudden I needed to be close to where I could at least in cell range. And so my mule deer tag was in a space where I was out in the desert country with ample cell service and only an hour and a half ish, 2 hour drive home. So it was something I could tackle. So we switched to focusing on mule deer. And I've never killed a buck in the velvet of all things, which is kind of wild because I've always been a bow hunter and seen lots of them. But
Sure.
I'm an elk hunter. So mule deer come to be by typically my focus on mule deer is through chance. So when I'm hunting elk, I'm like, hey, look, there's a nice buck. I'll put a move on them, and often find myself with a good buck every few years. So yeah, I
Yeah.
hunted mule deer, and it was a really neat experience. I've done it before. Dan and I used to hunt quite a bit early season. We focused on it. Mule deer guys laugh at me because they're so diehard and hardcore about it. And I have a wall of 170, 180 bucks that have come to me through just time in the field. And I wouldn't call myself a really good mule deer hunter. And so I've honed my skills this season and spent a lot of time scouting and just behind the glass and just really focusing in on trying to get a good buck. And it paid off. But I learned a lot of my weaknesses. I'm definitely characteristically, I'm a run and gun hunter, which fits elk really well. It doesn't fit mule deer really well. So
I know, man. I know that's a tough one with mule deer with a bow is you've just got to have like next level patience,
yeah,
which is, very respectable. And it's like, I'm disciplined enough to know that I'm not disciplined enough to pursue a lot of mule deer with my bow. I'm a run and gun guy like you.
yeah. I think uh, coming from like the North Idaho upbringing, it's sort of what you just know, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know there wasn't open hillsides and patient opportunities. It was brush busting and calling bulls to 10 yards and shooting them. And that was your upbringing. That's what you cut your. So, but I'm 42 now, and maybe that helps me because I enjoyed it. I had a great time just getting up in the morning, making a cup of coffee, and going and glassing bucks, and just sitting there calculating their moves and watching the wind and things that but you don't necessarily practice the same way because it's a lot more science based. It's a lot more planning,
Mm-hmm.
taking pictures of the hillside. So when you get over on the other hillside, you can be like, oh yeah, there's that rock and there's that tree. And if I sneak around this corner, that buck's right here, and so we did that and day in and day out and found ourselves sitting on, there's two good bucks in there. And we covered a lot of country to narrow it down to what I would consider two shooter bucks in that space. And they both happened to be hanging out together. One day they'd be together and the next day they'd be 500 yards apart, but they were always in that same sector. And cliff systems, it's kind of a dream come true. You know, it's going to be a cool episode. You don't, I have always dreamed of shooting bucks in the cliffs, and that's exactly what this was. And every day they'd go bed up in the base of these cliff systems and underneath of the undercuts, and just classic. It was absolutely amazing to slip in and literally look over the edge of a rock system and be like, tines. Yep, he's right there.
I'm on your Instagram looking at this one picture you've got of that buck. Kind of, he's like right at the base, laying on. It looks like you just like snapped a picture with your phone, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Cool,
that was actually a trick that I learned this year was to stick my phone up and take video and photos without me having to pop over the edge, and it saved me a lot of headache. Because I tell you what, I think I blew 5 or 6 stocks in the first 3 or 4 days, and you think you're never going to get another chance, right? I mean, there's so often those older, mature deer just disappear, but we kept the wind right and managed to not blow them out super bad. And would give them a break, go look at some new country and come back. And they were within the same couple mile area. And yeah, so I can't remember dates exactly, but I ended up sticking he was my second buck. He was my plan B buck, but this guy was kind of Mr. Perfect. And the one buck was about a year older, a little bigger body, and just had a little more character to him. And that was my target buck, and didn't end up with the target buck, but I got Mr. Perfect, and I was stoked because I was running out of time.
When you say, hey, I lost your sound, buddy, did a wire come loose or something on your mic?
Maybe. Everything's still plugged in. You don't got me. You don't have me?
Weird. There we go. It was on my end.
Okay. I was gonna say it's still registering on my screen here. So
yeah, you're good. No, it was my hillbilly setup here. Anyway, so that's this buck. Again, I'm on your Instagram here. So I'm insta stalking you here.
Mm-hmm.
That 4x4. I can't tell if there's kickers or anything, but that's like a perfect symmetrical buck. It looks like.
Yeah. He's Mr. Perfect. He's just a tall, beautiful. I'm assuming he's around 5.5. He might have been, he might be 4.5, but he's just right at that mature, nice buck.
Very nice. Very cool, because that velvet looks like it's in great condition. Is this buck at the taxidermist, or did you do like a Euro on it?
I had him do a velvet Euro. So,
really?
Yeah. First time I've ever had that happen. So he's on the wall, full velvet, and just a Euro skull mount. So it's kind of cool.
That's a cool buck, man. So how in that country, because I'm looking at that and like, you're throwing out places like North Idaho, and we're talking I live up here in Northwest Montana, and I know North Idaho like the back of my hand, and so when I think mule deer hunting strategically, I learned, like, when I came down to Wyoming to hunt this last October, man, it is wildly different. It is like wildly different. First of all, Wyoming just has some big old freaking mule deer. I mean, just impressive, lots of impressive bucks to look at. And I don't know what it is about that open prairie type country. The antlers, the growth is massive. Like,
it's still good. Yeah, you'd think there's no way.
We just don't get mule deer like that up here in the timber. And I have theories as to why that is and whatnot, but it's like there's just something about those Wyoming bucks. And I'm looking at this country that you're hunting in, especially with a bow. It's like you've got cover, there's some terrain features, it looks like some river bottom type stuff and some rocky cliff faces. And how what is the strategy there? Is it getting to a vantage point and glassing up a buck and then coming up with a game plan how to get within bow range, or like, are you setting up on a trail just waiting? Walk us through how you hunt that kind of country. Because
It is.
and before you, the reason is I'm sick of people coming to Montana to hunt mule deer. They need to go to Wyoming because they're better and more, right? No, I'm kidding about that whole
Go to
part.
Colorado.
Yeah, go to Colorado. I like that. Okay, so anyway, getting back to, like, how do you hunt? What's your strategy?
So I have morphed completely into spot and stock 100% of the time. I don't do waiting games anymore, ever. If I'm in a scenario, elk or deer, I find them first, and then I come up with a plan to hunt them. There's obviously situations where that changes in the middle of your hunt, but I will never leave my truck, my tent, wherever I'm stationed with a blind approach. So I'll find a vantage point, whatever that is for the area. A lot of times it's a high from above, but a lot of these areas too, you got to just spot from below because the way the draws open up. So whichever the advantage from spotting position is, I'll spot from there. And then I spend a substantial amount of time calculating my plan of attack. And that's what I learned a lot about mule deer this year, or validated, I should say, information that I've known and practiced a little, was taking the time to really vet out my plan ahead of time, which also gives the buck a chance to do its secondary bed. And when you're in real wide open country like we are here in Wyoming, they'll rebed all day long. So you hear classic wait till the buck gets in his second bed. Well, that's true in a space where his second bed's going to keep him sheltered all day, right? If it's not, then he'll rebed all day long and follow the shadows. So this area, it was like a 3-bed location. The way that the shadows moved, they would typically move 3 times before they got up to go back and feed again into the evening. So your first bed, don't even think about it. Second bed, I've got a window of opportunity here to make it work. If I can get at least close enough to relocate him, I'll either hunt him in that second bed or wait for the third bed and then go on that third bed situation. So that's kind of a nuts and bolts of it, but this hunt was all death from above approach. So there was an opportunity to kind of get below them and hunt them as they fed out into the sage-ish country, the foothilly country. But there were so many deer, and the wind was never right. So every approach was spot in the morning, get them in their bed, and then if they're in a place that we can hunt them. If they're not, keep looking and until you find a buck that is in a huntable spot, or just come back again the next morning. So, and that was amazingly effective. And then I spent a lot of time photographing or videoing the hillside that they were on, calculating my approach from above, which was a major transition, right? So I could drive part of it, hike a bunch of it, and then approach from the above side. And if you couldn't do it quickly, you knew they were going to move, which when you're on cliff systems is a giant pain in the rear, because literally I can go left 6 feet or right. I'm going backwards here. Left 6 feet or right 10 feet. And I'm looking into a totally different spot. And it's very hard to pick them out because there's going to be deer underneath most of the cliff systems. And if you blow one, you're done. So, and there was no stinking wind, man. And I was in my socks all day long, and my camera guy and I were dancing around cactus like it was, like it was a dance floor. And we had a lot of fun, but we were so exasperated by like day 6, because you could hear a pin drop from 100 yards away. And these deer are bedded at the base of these rocks without a whisper of cover noise, and getting within bow range was insane. So it was
that was another question I had too, Jordan. With what as I'm looking at this country again, I've anybody watch. I've got a second screen here. I'm looking at. Um, when I think of mule deer hunting, I think of really paying attention to my wind, those thermals, and the nice thing about where I hunt mule deer usually outside, not I'm not talking about when I was in Wyoming, but I noticed this when I was in Wyoming. Here in Montana and North Idaho and whatnot, it is once you learn how thermals work in the mountains, it is really easy to use those to your advantage.
Right.
And you could look at a map, you could look at the face of a mountain from down below before you even head up, and you can kind of read it like a map and know exactly where those winds are going to be blowing at what times of day and whatnot. Whatever conditions it might throw at you, and I've got really effective at that. In that country, I wouldn't have that tool to my advantage. It doesn't look like mountain thermals are going to be as like big of an impact to your strategy because it's more like a prevailing wind, and that's how it was in that part of Wyoming I was in. Is that true, or like what happens with thermals, because you're like in mountains but not on the mountain? I don't know how to explain that to people.
Yeah.
I'm looking at pictures and just making assumptions here, I guess.
Yeah, no, you're right though. You're in the anywhere, like a lot of the area I was hunting was badlands, so there's not a mountain around, but there's lots of undulating terrain. Maybe it's up and down, but it's so there's a micro effect to the thermal system that would be similar to what you deal with in a big mountain range, but it's the prevailing wind is the Mac Daddy. You got to pay attention to the prevailing wind more than anything, but it conflicts with the micro system. So you have both in play all the time. So if there's a cool morning and you're on a pretty any type of elevation change of slope, you're still going to get your downdraft in the cool morning like you would on a mountain, but you have the prevailing wind potentially interfering with that. And so as you're on top, it's going to be a prevailing wind, and then you can literally walk 20 yards and now you're in the system wind. So it can be very conflicting. You can make a plan, be like, dude, the wind's right on my back. I gotta change, or the wind's right in my face. Multiple times this year, it's right in your face. And we walk 20 yards and it's to our left. And then you walk 20 more yards and it's at our back because it's still morning thermals. So looking at the grass, paying attention to what's happening, where the deer are, and then knowing the prevailing combined with the thermals is going to be your attack. And so it's a little more complex in my mind, but not really. It's basically wind is always the nemesis, and it's always the number one factor. And if you can stay on the leeward side, you're good. And if you can't, you can't. And so this hunt was really difficult because your amount of time above the deer was substantial. We'd spend 30, 40 minutes getting into position because there was no cover noise, and that's a long time to have your scent linger in one area. So that complicated things a lot. And then by the time you actually had a potential to draw back your bow, you could be a solid 2 hours of time on them within 100 yards of the animal. So
God, it's crazy, man. I just like that is really appealing to me. That just looking again, I'm with the Instagram here. The type of terrain, the country you're in, I've hunted that before, like in Utah, that kind of stuff, and it's just been a long time, and so it's really appealing. I would love to like where you were hunting there. If I were to come down there with my bow, how hard is it to get a mule deer tag for that kind of country? Is it hard? Is it point wise or?
So there's the area I was hunting is very hard. I happened to draw an unbelievably hard to draw tag with like my first try, but
wow,
surprisingly was not a very quality tag. It's the whole area is on a downtrend for the last 5 years, and I probably caught the bottom of it. But there's a lot of similar terrain in Wyoming that's general tag. So in that sense, it's very doable because as a non-resident, you can draw Wyoming in general every 2 or 3 years. So it's within the range of achievable. I will never hunt that tag again, or I won't even apply for it. It wasn't worth it. It's general Wyoming is better than the tag I hunted for sure.
Really?
So,
Really?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like I said, as I'm getting older, Jordan, like I start thinking about, I'm really limited with being able to travel right now to hunt elsewhere because I'm so kind of wrapped into the outfitter that I'm working for and guiding and whatnot. And like I was telling you before we started recording, my buddy keeps roping me into guiding a lot more than what I really want to, because I like to hunt for myself and take my girls out a lot, and it just didn't happen this year. And so, but I'm looking for like super unique experiences hunting wise.
Yeah.
Things that I haven't, like I'm looking, well, I won't bore everybody with that. I want to experience hunts like that you've done. Cause I mean, there's places in Montana that are like that I could go to or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just super unique with a bow, that kind of desert type stage country with the cliff systems and what a heck of a buck, man. What was that still? I'm assuming August when you got that buck?
No, I think it was like September 8th when I shot him. So he hung on his velvet a lot longer than I expected. Almost the whole mountain was rubbed off besides him. He was the last one to rub, and I shot him. He probably would have rubbed off that night. He was about ready to lose it. I'm surprised we were able to save it, honestly. But
wow.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
incredible, man. When you think about that mule deer hunt with your bow in that kind of country, in that kind of terrain, are there like lessons that came out of that particular hunt where it's like, man, you know what I'm talking about? The kind that the rest of the year kind of keep you up all night, that you'll learn, that you'll take into the future, that people listening might learn from, so they don't do the same thing.
Sure.
That's kind of the stuff we're going for.
Right. I think the biggest lesson is, so there's twofold. You got to trust your gut. So if you know animal movement and you have a strong feeling that it's time to go. But if so there was multiple times where I sat there and I was like, everybody says we need to wait for the second or third bed, and I'm just going to wait a little longer. And you just sat there, and you sat there, and you sat there, and you sat there, and you followed the rules. But in my gut, I was like, I need to be up on that stinking mountain right now, sitting above that buck. And I was right multiple times. And finally the camera guy was like, dude, then let's just go. If you feel like we need to go, let's just go. And so I was kind of getting in the head game of advancing too quickly and wasting time, because they do move to their second or third bed and then you lose them, or delaying and then something else happens, whatever that might be. And, another hunter or more, the winds change, or, whatever. There's, how hunting can be. There's 1,000 variables. They move to a spot that's no longer approachable, etc. So balancing like your instinct of, man, they're in a good spot. It's 9:30. He's already bed the second time. I need to move, versus, man, they're in a really good spot, but it's 8:15 and he hasn't moved yet. I need to wait. So there was a big sharpening in my world this year with learning the balance between the patience game and attack. And then another interesting thing I came away with, which in hindsight really plays through, is I am back to the elk hunting concept. I'm a run and gun hunter. So my veins run with ice when it's a quick encounter. I can steady and shoot I can shoot a 400 class bullet 30 yards without even a heartbeat. And I sit on a deer or an elk for an hour and a half, and I turn into a mental bucket, just a mental wreck. And I didn't know that about myself until this season. And I was really flustered because I messed up. Even on this buck, you'll see in the episode, I didn't hit him that well. And it's like, how is that possible? I mean, I'm not trying to brag, but I shoot pretty dang well, and I practice all summer, and I'm stretching out shots out to 100, 120 yards and putting them in a nice little 6-inch circle. And I shoot this buck at 31 yards and don't dial it. What the heck? And I started finally assessing the scenario more accurately, and it is the anticipation building for that long, long, long stretch, and it finally is going to happen. And you're at a space of it could all go away in less than a second.
Yeah.
So do I like settle one more second worth and make that shot perfect, or do I let her rip? And I found myself letting it rip instead of settling into that shot just a little bit better, which is not the answer, right? So there was this a weakness that I discovered. So my mental preparation has changed to train around the anticipated shot more than just the cold turkey shot, because I'm obviously good in that space, and I think that's just a natural blessing that the Lord gave me. But because a lot of people are the opposite.
You're talking like when the adrenaline is high, things are moving fast.
I'm steady.
Yeah. I'm the same way there. I think that what it is because it's such a volatile situation, right? A screaming bull's coming in or something.
Right.
And like things are just high tension, high stress, fast moving, all this stuff. I think that what that does is that does not allow you to panic.
Right.
And so like but like you said, some people really choke right there.
Yeah.
Where I choke is if I'm sitting there, like, let's say it's a long range rifle shot and I have 10 minutes to watch this deer come up into a position that's going to give me the most optimal shot. That's where I start getting in my head. Like even if it's only like a 300, I think that mule deer I shot in Wyoming, it was like 335 yards or something like that. Not like a terrible shot at all, but because of the time that I had to watch him, and I was he was standing there behind like this little bluff, it was really windy and really rainy, and this right when I got within range, this lone cloud comes in and starts just dumping on us. And anyway, so we're standing there and I'm watching him. I'm behind the rifle, and it's like, man, that time I got in my head a little bit about, because I don't know, we don't do a lot of those longer shots in Northwest Montana, right? It's so thick and brushy, North Idaho, think that. And I think that that's what it is, where if you're working a bugle tube and that sucker's screaming at you and is, he's just got your adrenaline full speed, you don't have time to think about, well, what if I screw this up? I don't know. That's my own assessment of it. Have you ever checked out Joel Turner's shooting class, Shot IQ?
I've seen it. I'm aware of it, but no, I've never looked into it. Yeah.
I had him on the show, and it was really interesting how he, especially as an archer, talks about the little mental gymnastics that go through your head when you're about to release the arrow. And so I'm going to dive into that one a little bit more, because I had that happen with some hunting clients this year where I think that they just got in their head when it came time for the shot. And a lot of that is they're in like this place that they've never been in Montana, and maybe they're kind of new to bow hunting, and it's like, I feel like there is a price you pay to become a good bow hunter, and that is a lot of messed up shots. And I had some hunters pay that price this year. Yeah, experience. And so I don't know. What do you think? What do you think happens with like new bow hunters that cost them these bad shots the most? Is there like something that is consistent, like a mistake that is made? Like for me, it's a rush shot. I feel like it's made a lot. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's it's lack of mental preparation or the depth of experience to make it second nature, right? So I was a competitive shooter for my whole young adult life, and very seriously trained in the precision marksmanship side of things. So the whole shot IQ thing makes a lot of sense too. Your training has to become essentially like smooth muscle operation. You have to, because you're transitioning from left brain to right brain to your trigger finger and back and forth. So your brain only has the ability to recognize, like, for example, the pin on the heart with one half of the brain, and then the other half of the brain has to tell your finger to release or press the trigger. And then if you move, you got to switch back to the other half of the brain and recognize the sight picture again. Then it has to switch back to that side to tell you to pull the trigger again. And so it's a very quick synapsis that has to take place, which is why a lot of people develop target panic, because you get so like, oh, there it is, there it is, there it is, go bam, and you let her rip. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's a bow or a rifle, right? So if you're not real deep in your knowledge and experience, if you haven't shot, I don't even know how many hundreds of thousands of arrows I've let down range, but at some level, you shoot 20, 30 shots and you go hunting, or even if you shoot 200 shots and that's all you've ever put through your bow, it's like you're on the moon when you're doing it in front of an elk or a deer walking by. So depth of experience is huge. Shot repetition is huge. And then the mental planning part, like in competitive shooting, 90% of our training was visualization. So I think if we spend more time as sportsmen hunting, visualizing, that's a free training ground. And it's proven to be one of the most accurate ways, or not accurate, but one of the most effective ways to actually see improvement in your shooting or process, is to just imagine it, right? Imagine that perfect shot. You're calm, everything's settled, you see it, whatever, I use a button release, but whatever you have set up, and you can just see the arrow all the way in, do a perfect pass through, whatever it is. The more we do that, it doesn't matter what you're doing in life. If you're a sprinter, or if you're a basketball player, or you're a baseball player at the high level, they're visualizing their performance more than they're actually performing it. And that's streamlining their system when they step up to the plate or to the line, or et cetera, if that makes sense. So
experience the evolution of accuracy with the new Browning X-Bolt 2. Guys, this rifle is something else. With the introduction of the X-Bolt, Browning has set a new standard in the development of bolt-action rifles. It was created around the goal of total accuracy, where every component worked in unison to improve downrange performance straight out of the box, from windswept tundras to rocky peaks high above the tree line to African plains and everywhere in between. The X-Bolt delivered the tack-driving accuracy a Browning rifle is respected for. And that's super true, guys. I really like this rifle from a standpoint of, like, it's not super heavy, it's not super light. I put a really nice scope on it. I love that Veritech stock, because that is like one of those pieces of accuracy that, that interface between the rifle and the shooter. Not everybody's the same size. The DLX trigger, you can get the plus magazine system for extra rounds. Great all-around rifle in the field. For those of you that are looking for a rifle this year to take to the field that you can feel real confident in and get really comfortable with, this is the rifle to check out. The Browning X-Bolt 2 should be one of your top contenders. Link is in the show notes.
No, I love that, man. You said a couple things, like, I love the discussion around making your shot second nature. Like, you shouldn't be mechanical when you have an animal in front of you. It should not be this mechanical thing, right. Getting an arrow out of the quiver, whatever, knocking an arrow, drawing the bow, finding your shot. All that kind of stuff, that should be, like, in my opinion, a second nature thing. Yeah. Like turning your blinker on because you're turning right, but you don't mentally think about turning your blinker on when you're driving, right? It's just one of those things that you've done it so many times. And I think that's what happens to a lot of hunters, is they'll come on this hunt and they're not at that second nature status. But the visualization thing is, I think, really critical, man. I've never really thought of it that way. I'm glad you said that, because there's a lot to the mental game, especially, and I would say more so for archery than rifle hunting, right?
Sure.
Rifle hunting is it's similar from the standpoint you don't want things to be mechanical.
Yeah.
It needs to be like, I experienced somebody that came out with a brand new rifle to hunt in Montana.
Yep.
And they hadn't shot it other than to, zero the rifle right there at the range. But every rifle has a little bit of nuance to it, right? Like the bolt gets jammed mid-stroke or whatever. There's all these little nuances. Same with a bow.
Yep.
But if you don't have those nuances and those little things and the functionality of that particular weapon or your glass or whatever, if that isn't second nature, you're gonna fumble when it's that critical time. And I think that is a big failure point for most hunters, whether they're archery or rifle hunting or whatever, is they have these failure points that take place in a mechanical fashion, meaning they have to think about how that arrow is going to knock into that string. Yeah. They have to think about clipping that release to the string and or chambering around. And like, I've got this one rifle that is, it always, it doesn't jam. It sticks when I pull that bolt up. You got to give it a little bit extra oomph or whatever to get that bolt back. I've tried to fix it. I've oiled the crap. I've done all sorts of stuff to this rifle. Still sticks. And so my Model 94, if you're that lever, if you're not paying attention, anyway, going into all this stuff, I think people are smelling what I'm stepping in, but those mechanical failures and breakdowns, I think are the most problematic area for most hunters, especially new and inexperienced hunters.
Yeah. I agree.
Anything to add to that? I'm sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent there.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's to become a professional at something, I think most people say it takes around like 10,000 hours. Is it? I can't remember the number.
Yeah. I think so too.
But it's a lot. And if you've ever tried something new, you'll see that it doesn't really become second nature until you get that literally to somewhere around that 10,000 hours. And then you change it a little bit with a new bow or a new release or a new this or new that. Well, it'll come back quicker, but you still have to become proficient with it. Don't go hunting with a brand new release. Don't go hunting with a brand new whatever.
Yeah, that's an important one, man.
If you have to, you have to, and you get enough time in it. I mean, I heard somebody ask Dan the other day if it was hard to switch to a new bow and if that's real difficult. No, it's not. Once you get to a point where you have hundreds of thousands of arrows down range like Dan, it's not hard for him to grab a new bow, dial it in, and go run with it like it's an extension to him, because he's going to shoot the same release, he's going to have the same peep, he's going to have the same sight, and so the familiarization is limited. But you can't compare Dan with somebody who gets a chance to shoot 2 or 3 times in the summer before they go hunting. And so that really is what separates the professional from the semi-professional from the recreationist, right? We have tens of thousands of hours doing what we do because we love it, and they get to do it when they have time, so there's a different space there.
No, you nailed it, man. It's the 10,000 hour rule suggests mastery that takes longer for world-class status. So 10,000 hours of doing something like that. And I could tell you, I would bet my next paycheck that the lion's share, the vast majority of archers don't go into elk season with 10,000 hours of practice. You know what I mean? And so I had this buddy, man, this is years ago, long before like this podcast and all that, but I had this buddy at work, and we'd get to like the middle of August, and I'd be like, man, are you excited? Elk season's coming up. It's almost here, man, just a couple weeks. And I'd be like, I've been shooting my target in the backyard all summer, blah, 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 whatever. And he'd always make this joke. Like, it was almost like this point of pride to him that he never took his bow out until like a week before season. And he'd always joke with me, "Oh, I haven't even gotten my bow out yet." Ha ha ha. And you know what that guy did? A, he never saw elk, and B, when he did, he never hit him. Right. And it's, I don't know that he's still to this day gotten an elk, because people make this joke, or like it's this funny thing that they don't ever get their bow out right until it's like right before season, and they want to be proud of that or whatever. And I get it, man. Things are crazy. It's chaos out there, having a wife and kids and a full-time job and other hobbies. And this same guy prioritized playing golf over practicing his bow.
Right.
And that's why we never became close friends. It's just, it's criminal in my mind. But anyway, I love this discussion, because we are like, not everybody maybe is as caught up in the lifestyle that is hunting,
Right.
that like you and I are, you know, and I understand that a lot of people, they're just kind of that hunting hobbyist. I consider hunting is not a hobby for me.
Right.
You know, it's a lifestyle, and it's a beautiful lifestyle, and I'm blessed to be able to make it a lifestyle, and I've set up my career so that it can be a lifestyle, you know, all these things. But to a lot of people, it's this hobby that they do. And how do we get those kind of hunters on? Well, I don't know that you do. I don't know that you do. If you've got somebody, you know, that it's just kind of like a hobby, like watching football or playing golf. Hunting is never going to be a thing where they're going to enjoy serious levels of success, or that 10,000 hour rule, you know, that we were talking about.
Yeah, it's almost a crux in America at the moment. I think that you're going to find there are a lot of people that are adding it to their repertoire and taking it seriously, but we live in a culture that we can just pay a little more money to have a little more advanced tooling and equipment and attempt to experience the same thing that the pros experience. At least that's what social media pretends or paints the picture of. And I think that's going to be a demise a lot that we'll fight as a culture, as a hunting culture, especially. You know, we are able to do that to a degree, and technology has continued to make it easier for people to step up and shoot a bow at 60 yards without any trouble. Like nobody did that 15, 20 years ago. Only the pros did that.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember in the 80s, like I was a kid in the 80s, by the way. I'm not, did you say you're 42?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. We're pretty much the same age. I'm 45. But like, I remember like my neighbor, this dude that lived when I was, I don't know, first grade or something, he'd make this big deal. He's going bow hunting. And I remember thinking, because we'd go as a family, we were rifle hunters. We'd go on the rifle hunt, but this guy was going bow hunting. And in my mind, that was next level, and only true mountain men could go bow hunting. And like, so it's always been this thing in my life since then. You know, that guy had quite the impact on me, even though he barely talked to me.
Yeah.
You know, it's bow hunting is it's an art form on top of the skill set, and you have to master it. And I think that I don't mean to hammer this point. I think I experienced it a lot this season, that where people may not have put in the time that is required to be able to overcome the mental gymnastics that having, whether it's a screaming bull or a deer or a bear. Well, I had one client, he made a great shot on a bear actually with his bow. That was awesome. Anyway, it's just a thing that I think that people don't understand, how prepared you have to be both mentally and skill set wise when it comes to a bow to make it happen and actually notch a tag on that animal. What say you?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. It's just a matter of the lifestyle. It has to become enough of a drive for you to decide that that's what you want, or you want to just stick with what you got and be okay with most likely mediocre results. And, you know, and then in defense of people out there that don't do it that seriously, they have a lot of other things that they enjoy, like golfing and sports and things like that, that I've never met a diehard hunter that has a lot of side gigs, you know. And I remember when I first started with Eastmans, all these different individuals be like, "You're so lucky, you get paid to do what you love," and I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely, I'm blessed, 100%." It's like, but the cost is real. We eat, sleep, and breathe this year round, And he's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, you're coaching wrestling right now," to one of my buddies. He's like, "Yeah." It's like, "I don't coach wrestling. I coach archery."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "How about after wrestling? What are you going to do?" And he's like, "Oh, well, we'll go into track or whatever, And I was like, "Okay, I don't do that. I start shooting outdoor leagues, and he's like, "Oh, okay." And then, and then he's like, "Do you fish?" And he's like, No, I don't fish. I practice hunting, I was like, I do fish, but you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
so there is a cost, and everything has a cost, right? And it's, for me, my kids hunt with me. My bride used to hunt with me, and she'll probably hunt with me again as the kids are getting older now. So it is a lifestyle, it's a culture, and it's something that we are immersed in, and it works. But, I have one baseball player, and I have one rodeo girl, and they're, but our lives ultimately don't revolve around sports. They don't revolve around things outside of hunting very much, if that makes sense. We do.
Absolutely.
Church, stuff around Jesus and mission trips, and then hunting, and then a little bit of sports, and that's kind of our world. And so anyway, yeah,
we have a lot of similarities, man. My girls, they kind of dabble in sports a little bit, but my oldest daughter was becoming quite the basketball player, but it cut into hunting season, and she is a very dedicated bow hunter. My daughter is a very, like, she's 16. She's better at bow hunting than I am, and I'm embarrassed to admit it, but she's a great bow hunter. And she didn't want to play basketball this season because the practices, they bumped the practice start times up a month sooner or something, which put her into archery season. She didn't want to miss archery. Like that, she's not missing archery season. And I'm the same dude. I don't know if I've ever told anybody this, but I was a varsity starting lineman in high school, and I stopped playing football because it cut into hunting season.
Right.
And that's how, and a lot of people look at that and they're like, "You are crazy for doing that, man. You only have football season for a short time in your life playing high school ball." I get it. But I not only did I stop playing football, I quit a job because they wouldn't give me opening weekend off. It is that big of a deal. Now, this was just a little high school, I think I worked at a place called the Taco Maker or something, but
right.
That always blows my mind with companies. We talked about this at some point. I don't know where, but I've always had this mentality when I'm working for a company. Now I work for myself, so I don't have to worry about it. But they thought I was requesting time off so that I can go hunting. I wasn't. I was letting them know that I would not be available, and with plenty of advance notice. Like this particular job, I gave them like a month's notice that deer season opens this weekend and I am not available to work. And then they came back and denied. And I'm like, I'm not a slave. You're not denying me. I'm letting you know I won't be here so you can cover it. And and like that's, I think, a mentality most people need to get back to. But anyway,
it's true.
I want to talk about I need to have you on the show more often, Jordan. I really like your philosophies, and I finish the point. There's a lot of similarities. Our life is centered around Jesus and in church and bow hunting. That's how my family's set up, man. So I want to talk about this Pennsylvania trip, man. Because I've been, how I was talking about earlier that I'm looking for like these new hunting experiences that I just don't get here in Northwest Montana or North Idaho or even Wyoming. One of the things I am really interested in, I got to guide these two dudes that were from Illinois. And these are like, in fact, one of them actually sent me, he took a picture of me glassing while he was here. We were hunting for mule deer, and he took a picture. In fact, it's sitting right, I had to show you. I think it's right here. He made this little prayer card, a hunter's prayer card, and I just got it in the mail the other day. It's super cool. But I got to guide these two guys they have like these 40-acre and the other one's like an 80-acre tract of land in Illinois, and they manage this land specifically for whitetail. Right.
Yeah.
It is like it's a whole cultural thing out there in the Midwest. Right. And I think Pennsylvania is like this too, where they have these tracts of land. And for a guy out west, this is all foreign to me. So some of you out there listening, don't laugh at me. I'm not super familiar with it. But they manage it specifically to grow big whitetail on.
Right.
And they sit in these like these above ground raised blinds, like one of them is called like a redneck blind or something, and that's the brand that makes these high dollar blinds, so you're not sitting in a tree stand in the weather or whatever. They're pretty cool. I don't know, I got a thing for them. I've been checking them out. I want to experience a hunt back there. Now I hunted in North Carolina because I was stationed out there in the service, but I hunted North Carolina the way I hunt the West. It was the first whitetail I'd ever gotten. But I did it by kind of bird dog in the brush with a rifle, which is a pretty rare thing back there. Everybody thought I was crazy. Tell us about this experience in Pennsylvania, coming from the West, a dude from the West going to Pennsylvania to hunt whitetail. What was different, and what was your takeaway off of that? Does that question even make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, it was kind of a dreamy experience, and just being able to sit in the hardwoods and just enjoy the sounds of the hardwoods and the leaves and the deer. And I've seen it in my whole life and growing up watching like the Drury brothers. And I mean, they're not in Pennsylvania, but hunting back east and Pennsylvania. I don't know a lot about the whole thing, but I've kind of derived that it would be sort of like the Idaho of the East, and it's like an opportunity state. So they have lots of deer, lots of cover, lots of food, not a lot of trophies. It's more of a opportunity state. Then you get into Ohio right next door, and they don't have a gun season. So just that alone makes them into more of a trophy state. So all the guys that are serious about killing big bucks go to Ohio. And then if you're even more serious, you go to Illinois or Iowa. Which makes sense, right? It kind of all fits. But I was working in Pennsylvania with my job with Westinghouse, working on a nuclear power plant, and I had the whole month of being there. And I was like, man, I'm going to do this. So bought the tag. It's a very affordable opportunity compared to hunting out west, and just applied my knowledge. I grew up hunting whitetails in Washington State and North Idaho, so I had a pretty good baseline of knowledge of just deer. And with my experience with Eastmans and Onyx and all the things of just studying the ground and finding public land and all that, I hit the ground running. First day I was there, I was walking circles, or not circles, but property lines around game management areas and looking for high traffic. And
can I ask you something on that?
Yeah.
Because the first thing that came to my mind when I think about like you hunting in Pennsylvania, is it like in North Carolina, there isn't really public land. I mean, there's these small chunks of accessible. There was like this one national forest in coastal North Carolina that I hunted. That's actually where I killed that buck. But what was that like from a guy who is from the West with all this public land, this access? How did you find a place to hunt, first of all, on the East Coast?
Well, Onyx was my pop it up and start looking for game. So they state game lands is what they call them. And they have, there's quite a few in PA, and in all those little states back there, not little states, but West Virginia and Ohio, they all have pretty good chunks of them. And I didn't know what to expect. I've hiked on them a lot. When I'm there in the summer, I shoot my bow on game lands, see lots of deer, but I expected it to be a complete zoo. For example, Allegheny County has like 1.28 million people in it. And that's double of Wyoming's population in the state, right? So there's a lot of people, and a lot of people deer hunt. So some of those game lands are completely bumper to bumper, and some of them aren't bad at all. And I just happened to go find one that was close to where I was working and started looking, and there was a lot of sign. It was early October, and I figured, hey, if I can find good crossing signs, I'm doing it. So I started set up trail cameras and hanging tree stands, and I also started knocking on doors, because that's, in my opinion, whitetail private land, that's the best, right? So
Absolutely.
within the first week, I had permission on a private place that was bordering the state game lands. And I had a tree stand in the game lands, and I had a saddle that I was using on the private, which is a fun conversation all in of itself. Let's use a saddle there. And I hunted both sides of the fence, literally. And actually I ended up killing my buck on private, which is surprising, because I was having much more action on the public land stand than I was sitting in my tree saddle on the private side. But
on your Instagram here, is that buck that is on, it looks like you've got him on a trail camera here. No monsters, but my mock scrapes are getting some action, is kind of what you put in there. Is that the buck you ended up killing?
It is. Yep. And
that's actually a pretty good buck, man.
I'm super stoked with him, and he ended up becoming my target buck. I had a 9-pointer. If you're back east, you guys will resonate with my language, and a 8-pointer. And the 9-pointer was a little more basket rack, and he's in that picture too. You can see him kicking off to the side there, and he's licking a scrape, or he's got his head up licking a licking branch. But that 8-pointer just had character and some mass and big body, so I was hoping to get him, but he was very random. And I spooked him one night sitting in my stand. He came in at dark, right to the base of my tree. The first night I hung my tree saddle set up, and I was skylined because he was right below me. He looked straight up at me, and I just tried not to move, but whatever the scenario was, he blew out of there.
Oh, damn.
I never got him on camera again. So I figured the spot was kind of dead, but I saw the scrape was still livened up just down the stream bed from me quite a bit. So he had just vacated the scrape I was sitting over. I had a mock scrape there too that some little bucks were using. Long story short, I sat a lot. I was working night shift, so it was really funky to work around my sleep schedule. But basically I would go home, sleep, get up, go sit in the tree stand from as early as I could get there as possible. It's like 3:30, 4 in the afternoon until dark. And then I would go sleep in the back of my Suburban for an hour and then go straight to work. And I just did that as often as I could do it. And
when we talk about hunting as a lifestyle, that is what I'm talking about. I love it, man.
I mean, I literally rented an SUV on purpose so I could put a bedroll in the back and do this stuff, right? It's very calculated at all levels. And yeah, I was hunting the only way I could do it is if I was able to sleep an hour before I went into work, because I was only getting 5 hours of sleep up until hunting, and I needed that extra hour to be effective at work and not be bad at my job, right? And
amazing.
So it all worked out. And everybody's like, oh, you'll start seeing deer close to Thanksgiving. And they were right. As soon as, not Thanksgiving, Halloween, they're like, Halloween, they'll start kicking. And man, like 3 days before Halloween, scrapes started showing up and things started coming alive. And I had sat my public land stand and a big buck came through and I messed it up. It was just pouring rain. I mean, it was coming down, and I was trying to kind of hunkered over myself, trying to keep myself dry with my rain jacket covering my legs, and still trying to keep my head on a swivel. And you know how big bucks do it anyway. They just show up out of nowhere. And he was running, and even with my head on a swivel, I turned and look, and there he is at 19 yards cutting across my set. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And by the time I got my bow and got to full draw and stopped him, he was at 40, and it just didn't happen. So I was pretty bummed because to me, that's what I train for, is that I should have seen him coming, and I should have got him at 19 when he was sitting right there. And I literally had just not looked to the right I couldn't have been more than 15 or 20 seconds. I mean, he just appeared. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to sit that stand again. I'm going to go try my private side and hang from the tree saddle, which I was borrowing from a friend that I met out there. His boy lent it to me. So I'm in this awesome tree saddle hanging in this tree, and I hadn't seen anything in it. I sat the thing 5 or 6 times, didn't even see a deer. And I was like, all right, I'm going to make this work. So I walk in there early and I blow this buck off the stand. And I was like, you got to be freaking kidding me, man. I was fit to be tied. You know, he was not under my stand, but he was within easy 25, 30 yards from my stand. And he just went ripping out of there. It's like, I almost didn't even get in the tree, but I climbed up in the tree. I had some exchanges with the Lord for about a half an hour. I was like, I don't know how many people have learned that confession is kind of the beginning of growth and understanding, but I had a long confession time with the Lord of my frustration. And just like, you know, it's just sometimes life is a little steep and you're on night shift and everything's hard and whatever. Can't see your kids. I haven't seen them for weeks and weeks. And so I just sat there, and my confession turned into prayer time, and then that turned into some praise time. And I just was like, man, Lord, I know that buck's not coming back, but I need that buck to come back. And I'm just at the grasping here. And it's like, so I'll be happy with whatever you give me, because I love hunting and I love being out here and I love your creation, but I need that buck to come back, because I'm just exasperated, and kind of left it at that. And that was probably, I don't know, about 45 minutes or an hour before dark by now. I'd been sitting up there for an hour and a half, and I sat there and just listened for every twig, break, rustling of the leaves. And I did hear a deer moving from a distance, but there was so much other activity going on. That's one thing you'll find in back east, is even if you're in the middle of 150 acres, you're listening to dogs barking, ambulances rolling, trucks jake breaking, all the different things, because there's just so much population. You can't really get away from it all. And all of a sudden I look down and a deer appears, you know, like kind of like a gray ghost, you know, just out of the edge of the hardwoods into the meadow that I was sitting in. And there he was. And I was like, no way, that's the buck. And he goes straight to the scrape that's about 185 or so yards to my right, down the creek bottom, freshens up the scrape, and then just starts walking down the creek towards me. And so I'm ranging, getting everything situated. I'm like, all right, once he makes the bend in the creek, that's 33 yards. He's in my wheelhouse. So I put my rangefinder away. When you're hanging in a saddle, you can't really run a chest rig. So that's something completely different than our Western hunter would have, right? Because that saddle you got a rope sticking right up in the middle here, and it's just right up in your system. So you can't really have a chest rig on. So my Eberly stock chest rig with my Sig Sauer binos is hanging from the tree, and I have to actually disconnect so I can just range and then hang it back off. It's really kind of awkward, but Eastern hunting problems. So he comes around the next bend and he's right there, but he knows that my bad stand is there. So he starts cutting right across the field where he came from. But I know he's at 32 yards because he's at that bend. So I drew my bow back and just settled in and absolutely pinwheeled him. It was the perfect culmination to at least 15-ish sits in, you know, probably, I bet you, I mean, I've never done the math, but I had a couple 100 hours of time pushing into that space, you know? So it was really neat, you know. He died maybe 50 yards from the public land.
Wow.
You know, so I did kill him on private, but he spent a lot of his life living on public, and he was in an area that got hunted super hard. So for me, I was absolutely stoked to walk away from, sitting 3 weeks worth of time in PA with a mature
Yeah.
8-pointer. So that was really cool.
So I have two questions about it. Because it sounds like that sounds like to me it was the quintessential Eastern seaboard whitetail hunt, or Midwest whitetail hunt kind of thing. The first question I would have is, how did you get permission? Was there an exchange? Did you have like a trespass fee, or did you offer to fix a barbed wire fence, or did you just say, hey, can I hunt your land? And he said, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So it was just a knocking on the door thing. He actually tracked me down. He's a little farm guy back there. He runs a pretty good sized farm. And I was driving from house to house trying to find somebody, and he showed up on his side by side and was like, hey, what are you looking for? And I was like, oh, I'm looking for a place to hunt, and he's like, oh, we all hunt, we don't really let anybody on here because we all hunt, he's like, my brother hunts over there, I hunt over here, my son hunts here, my dad hunts here, and I was like, oh, okay, no, I understand. It's like, I totally get that. He's like, the game lands is good though. You should just hunt the game lands. I was like, that's what I'll end up doing. I was like, actually, all I wanted to do is hang a stand right there in that crossing in this lower field between the game lands and your property. He's like, oh, well, if you don't want to hunt anywhere else, you just want to hunt there, you can hunt there. And I was like,
nice.
Oh, really? He's like, yeah. He was just, if you hang out in that little corridor, that'd be fine. So I chuckled and said, thank you. And we talked for probably 20 minutes and had a great time, and got his phone number and just started hanging stands. And the first night I sat, I think I posted it. Maybe I didn't, but a pig walked by my tree stand, and
really?
I took a picture of it, and I was like, missing something? And he's like, oh, shoot. Yeah, that's my kid's new pig. We just got that yesterday. And somehow this pig made it like almost a mile across this weird hill and around the corner and down this and right in front of me. So I made a little bit of favor with him by helping him catch his pig. And then between that and just asking him questions and chatting about hunting out west, we wasn't very long, and I had full run of the place, and we were, I didn't end up moving my stand, but more than 100 yards from there. So I shot him right where I wanted to, from where I wanted to anyway, but made a good friend out of it. And he'll probably be coming out west to hunt one of these days, because that's a dream of his. It's part of the experience, right? Is sharing what we do. And
yeah, absolutely, man.
Other guys, he's been in the West once when he was a young man and dreamed of coming back with a weapon. And so hopefully I'll scratch his back, because he definitely scratched mine and hooked me up with the opportunity to kill a whitetail and made a lifetime friend out of it. I'll be back there in April, and I'll be hunting turkeys, and I'm sure I'll be hunting turkeys on his ranch. So,
that's fun. Fantastic, man. I hope he does come out west, and you get to have the opportunity to maybe take him out on like a mule deer hunt or something. I don't know. I think that kind of stuff, that's what makes the world go round right there.
Yeah.
That's great. I love hearing stories like that, where you could still, go knock on a door and get the opportunity to meet a new friend and hunt his land. And I don't see the pig post on your Instagram, by the way, but
I probably
that's great. Yeah. It's just great stuff, man. The second question I had, what was the second? How do you make your mock scrapes for whitetail?
Okay. So I'm a little bit new to it, the mock scrape world, but I think the beginning answer to all of the whitetail stuff is absolutely unbelievable, meticulous scent control. Like, if you think you're good at scent control, rethink it and add another level of scent control, and you're probably beginning to do well with what you need to accomplish successful whitetail hunting. So when it comes to a mock scrape, that even magnifies. So for me, just in the very beginning, I'll never let one article of my clothing be exposed to everyday air. It's always in a sealed bag that's completely scent free, washed with scent killing detergent, packed full of baking soda powder. And my boots, my socks, my towel, my clothes, everything I've got is bathed in all that stuff. and I take a shower and the same stuff before I go, sit in the stand, and I spray down after I do it. I get dressed outside of my car. Nothing ever has contact with daily life scent. So, and with a scrape, I feel like your boots are probably the most critical element to that. So as you're going in to make your scrape, I like to do it when it's rainy because that kills your scent. But if you don't have rainy, then I didn't have a pair of rubber boots to wear back there. I just had my normal Zamberlan Western hunting boots, but I had sprayed the dog out of them with scent killer and kept them in this bag the whole time. And then I just sprayed them even more and then hit them with some pine before I got down to the area. So they're kind of covered in some piney sap. And then I grab a stick and I try to find a spot where I can put a licking branch. To me, that makes the most sense because that's I'd say 60% of the scrapes I find in natural have a licking branch. So I go to a spot where if it doesn't have a licking branch, I can make one and scrape it up good. Throw a little bit of dose scent in heat or early estrus in there, and then pull the licking branch down to your roughly 4 foot-ish, 42 to 48 inch height, and put a little bit of the orbital gland scent on there that you get from a buck and let it go. And I found that the orbital scent was more effective than the doe scent. They really picked up on that because that's the gland on the whitetail buck that when he rubs and gets, we call it a licking branch, which is kind of dumb because they don't lick it. They rub it with their face and they lick the air, but it kind of looks like they're licking it. So it's a little bit funky, but I mean, they might lick it a little, but it's really a rubbing branch. So, and the two of those combined, I had instant hits. I only did two, one beneath each stand, and immediately had bucks rubbing orbital gland on both of them and peeing in them and livening them up, and no question whatsoever from them if in regards to scent. So I did really well with my scent control. You could just tell by watching the cameras that they didn't have any worries there. So worked great. It worked like a charm. So
I think that for like hunters out west that are pursuing Western public land, mountain whitetail bucks, the whitetail scrape is one of the most underutilized tactics out here in the West. And I don't care if you're hunting river bottoms in Wyoming or high country whitetail in Montana or North Idaho. I use a product called and they're not like affiliated with the show in any way, so I'm not. This isn't an ad, but I do use buck fever synthetics, and I get the forehead gland in one bottle, and the other one's called the full rut. Which and you spray the forehead gland in the licking tree, what you're talking about up high. And I usually do it like at face level, face level, because that way that buck's coming and he's sticking his nose straight up at it, and then I rub out the ground below and put that full rut drop on the ground. Absolute money. And for those of you listening, like if you're in the Midwest or the Southeast or something, that's probably a pretty well-known product that gets, and the deer are probably pretty familiar with it. Out West, nobody utilizes stuff like that. And it is absolute money for whitetail. And if you have an area, I don't get super caught up in the scent part. I'll just walk right in there and I'll have Old Spice on and everything. But I think that human scent dissipates where the scent that we're putting down for that scrape stays. And every time it rains, it magnifies it. And so I'll put cameras on that. And I'm telling you, man, within 15 minutes of making a scrape in the West, I'll have bucks hitting that thing. And so I think it's just an underutilized. We should do like a whole podcast on making scrapes in the West. Like I would love to do one of those because I think it's just one of the most underutilized techniques. I got to play around with it a little bit too on some at the outfitter. We have access to some private chunks of land that hold some really good bucks. And I was able to kind of play around with it because a lot of the times we're hunting that private land for the elk, but Just out of like pure scientific study and research, I made some mock scrapes in early November to see how they would react. Bam, I was having bucks hit them immediately. I mean, instantly within 24 hours.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun. So anyway, well,
Love
cool, man. You had a hell of a season. Really nice buck there in Pennsylvania. And again, it speaks to this lifestyle, this commitment to hunting. You go out to this place that you're not familiar with the country. You're not familiar with that's like whitetail in Pennsylvania act a little differently than they do in Wyoming and versus Colorado or whatever. So it's just cool that you were able to go out there and experience that and make it happen, because that's a great buck. That's a really good buck. It looks like he's super wide. Great shot on him. I could see the shot placement here in the picture on the. By the way, if you're listening, what's your Instagram? At Jordan Breshears?
Yeah. Yep.
And that'll be in the show notes, guys. If you should jump on there and check this out and look at the difference. I love the progression of your season. You've got some great videos of these big old mule deer, and then you've got your velvet buck down, and then it moves into those Pennsylvania images. It's just cool, man. It's just, that's what a great season for you.
It was a lot of fun, man. It's just making the best what you can have and trying to roll with it. Like I have very much learned to enjoy wherever I'm at, being able to capitalize in some sort of outdoor adventure. And then, in the last couple of years, I'll put a Jesus plug in here, because Romans 12:1-2 says, in short, that in this too is your living act of worship. And that's kind of I'll actually hashtag that a lot in most of my posts. So I get to go do these things and worship the creator of the universe who made me to do these things while I'm doing it, and be edified while I'm edifying him. So it's an amazing opportunity. And I already have a Airbnb booked in Georgia. I start February 22nd, and I'm backed up to 10,000 acres of public that has all sorts of pigs in it and turkeys.
I was going to say pig hunting, man.
Yeah. So I'll be in Georgia hunting pigs in a few months, in a couple months now. And that's just another opportunity to go enjoy the Lord's creations and sharpen my pig tool. I've never run a pig, so I get to go play with some pigs and try to shoot some with. I got to bring my trad bow with me and my Matthews and see if I can get a couple of pigs. So it'll be fun.
Nice, man. Yeah. Are you doing that Matthews lift?
So the Arc is the new one. So yeah.
Oh, you've got the Arc. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I'll be running that.
Man, bows are like computers, man. You get one, and 5 minutes later, there's a newer, shinier, fancier one out. I still love my lift from last year.
Yeah, I do too. I have the Lift X that is an absolute bomber bow, but I'll be running the Arc. I went ahead and shortened up the bow. I'm running the 30-incher, and it'll be kind of a new experience for me. But that'll be a little more versatile for my Eastern/Western. I'll be able to run a smaller bow and experience a little bit different versatility. So it'll be fun.
Cool, man. Good for you, man. Well, it was a pleasure having you on, man. I just love your whole mentality, your approach to hunting, your commitment to archery, your commitment to experiencing God's creation in all sorts of places, and having this opportunity that you have with that unique nuclear power plant thing that you do, to be able to travel around and hunt all these different places and yet still get to call Wyoming home, which is a blessing in itself. And so, no, man, cool. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all that. It's Christmas Eve. I'll let you get back to the family and enjoy a good Christmas, and we're just going to have to do this again like usual.
Yeah. I love it. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's an honor. And Merry Christmas. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. And everybody showing or listening here, go ahead and if you get in the show notes, you can find the Instagram right there. You can find Jordan. He's all over in the magazines and on the blogs and in the YouTube and all the stuff Eastmans puts out. It's all out there. And make sure you're part of. If you're in Eastman's Elite, that gives you access to all of Eastman's tools, whether it's Tag Hub, or like the Deer Collective or the Elk Collective, and you get the magazines, and it also enters you in opportunities to win these really cool hunts, mule deer, pronghorn hunts. Really good deal.
Yep.
So check that out, guys. I got to give Eastmans a plug since they just do so much for me and everybody else out there. So check that out. See if it's worth it for you. Also, thanks to Mystery Ranch, Leupold Optics, Phelps Game Calls, and Browning. I almost said one that is no longer a sponsor. What kind of sin would that be, Jordan? I need to take it off my list.
That's right.
No, that's great, man. Thanks again for coming on, and let's just keep in touch and have a very Merry Christmas.
You too. Thank you.
You made it. That's the end of the episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you're following us on Instagram at The Western Huntsman and write us a good review at Apple Podcasts. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.